Hello folks, this is Leah Bonasaki from Master Lab Systems. Today we'll be looking at the Project Loom and virtual threads in Java 21 to supercharge our Spring Boot applications. Okay, so let's look at the introduction, why Project Loom matters. Well, first of all, imagine handling about 10,000 requests of concurrent requests with no extra overhead. Of course, that would really be massive to manage those requests without any extra overhead or any extra resources at hand. So, traditional Java threads and thread pools. The problem, of course, the traditional Java threads, they block the I/O, which is the input and output, and thread request model. Looking at the Java 21, which is the introduction of Project Loom and virtual threads, which is only available in Java 21. Okay, so what are virtual threads? Well, virtual threads are lightweight, user mode threads managed by the JVM, which is at a runtime Java virtual machine, of course. So also, looking at the contrast with the platform threads, no need to change your code drastically, just adopt new APIs. Definitely, with Java threads, it's simpler, even if you have already a application built previously or a legacy application, but you can simply just adopt the same code but using virtual threads. No need to super change anything in your code, but it's just a matter of doing a new configuration that will support virtual threads and Project Loom. Okay, looking at a demo comparison of a simple thread creation with thread of virtual.start. That's how you would create a virtual thread using the thread pool. Okay, let's look at the key differences between virtual thread and platform thread. Okay, so let's look at the first feature, which is mapping. So in virtual thread, mapping is managed by JVM, which is scheduled on a career thread. On platform thread, it is direct one-to-one, which is basically it means directly mapped to OS threads, which is operating system thread. So a request would come through and it gets mapped directly to the operating system, while on virtual threads it gets mapped by the JVM using the virtual thread. Okay, so in terms of cost, of course, virtual threads are extremely lightweight because of they are cheap and they are not expensive in that manner, and they are so lightweight. Platform thread, while platform threads are heavyweight and expensive because of the bare metal resources of your operating system. Okay, let's look at the scalability now. Virtual threads are scalable and they can handle thousands and millions of requests or tasks, while platform threads are limited to hundreds thread bottlenecks, of course. Okay, let's look at which one is the best for now. Definitely, in virtual threads, high concurrency applications such as microservices, input and output applications, they are very best for using in those applications. While platform threads are legacy workloads and CPU bound tasks, meaning just lightweight task, that will be the best use for them. Okay. Now let's look at setting up Spring Boot project with Java 21 to use the Project Loom that contains virtual threads. Okay, so first step that we need is to update our JDK and the POM file or Gradle if you are using Gradle as a building tool to Java 21, because virtual threads are only available in Java 21. Okay. Then next step will be to enable virtual thread in Spring Boot, which is on the application.properties, which is something that we'll be also looking at in a minute. And lastly, using spring.threads.virtual.enabled equals to true, which is only also available in Spring Boot 2+ app, which is what allows virtual threads to be enabled. Okay, I'll also showcase where to place that property. Okay, so looking at the coding demo from platform threads to virtual threads, we'll design a simple REST API controller using the REST controller, simulate blocking calls, e.g. thread.sleep, show performance difference using virtual threads and platform threads. Lastly, we can use JMeter or lightweight load test to demonstrate our scaling. However, in this case, we don't necessarily need any of those, but we'll look at the difference between platform threads and virtual threads and see why virtual threads are very much useful over platform threads. Okay. Looking at now the best practices and those so-called coaches. Okay, blocking versus non-blocking, input and output. Virtual threads still block, but efficiently. Yes, they still do blocking, but in an efficient manner, and they handle their blocking gracefully. Thread local considerations, debugging differences, and lastly, virtual threads work best or work great with JDBC and blocking libraries. Okay, let's look at the real world use cases why you would need to use virtual thread over platform thread. For high concurrency APIs, of course, as I've already mentioned, microservices under heavy load or heavy input and output load, long polling and streaming endpoints. Yes, they are very, very much useful, especially streaming endpoints such as applications like Netflix, Showmax that we'll use for streaming, etc. Okay, so now folks, we will create our basic application using Spring Initializer and import it in our own IDE and start exploring virtual threads and platform threads. Okay, so to do that, let's go ahead and create our project. So we'll go to our browser. Okay, so for example, let's use Spring Initializer. So with Spring Initializer, okay, I think I have it here. Okay, using Spring Initializer to simulate our basic Spring Boot project. Okay, so as I said, Project Loom that uses virtual threads is only available in Java 21 and with Spring Boot 3 plus. Okay, so again, in terms of project build a tool, it's fine. We'll keep it to Maven. Language, we'll keep it to Java. Okay, and then what else we need? Okay, so okay, fine. As I said, Spring Boot version will be from 3.2 to up. So this one is fine. 3.5.6. Fine, we can leave it. Okay, again, com.masterlab. Okay, so demo. Okay, say give it a Loom demo. That's the project name. Okay, you can give it a description. Okay, that's fine. Loom demo. Packaging, it's Java, fine. Okay, as I said, we'll use, it's only available in Java 21 as the version. So again, we have to select 21 here, not 17 but 21 to explore. Okay, so now what we need, it's the web. Okay, we need web, we need actuator, okay, to mount our endpoints, and we need, I would say, dev tools. Yes, we can include them. Okay, so these are the only dependencies, folks, that we require for this demo. Okay, so from here I will generate. So as you can see, I've generated. So now I will import it to my IDE. Then we can start creating our basic endpoint and add our virtual thread configuration using Project Loom, and then start testing that form. Okay, so once we have done all of these steps, now what we need to import the project. Okay, so in my case, I've already imported it. So this is how it would look like in my IDE when I've already imported it. I assume we will be doing the same in your case. Okay, so now the first step that we need, let's first, okay, so this is what we have currently. So we need one. Okay, first I will just quickly add the configuration. Maybe we can first verify our dependencies. Again, this is how it needs to be. Version, I'm just going to showcase the version. So ensure the version is on 21 to ensure that you can be able to get to the virtual threads. Okay, and these are dependencies that we need: actuator, web, and dev tools. Well, you don't necessarily need dev tools, but it's fine to have those. Okay, so that's all that we need in our dependency manager, such as POM file. So now let's go to our resources. Okay, so in resources, we need now to enable virtual thread. Okay, so I'm just going to copy my snippet to enable that. So I have a ready-made snippet here. Okay, so using this snippet would mean essentially we need to be enabling this. Okay, so this is what I'm referring to now. So enable virtual threads in SpringBoot. So again, using this configuration that says spring.thread.virtual.thread.virtual.enabled. is equals to through and management endpoint to ensure that each endpoint that is available in this application can automatically be able to use virtual thread. So essentially this would mean now, even if you were using an existing project that you need to migrate to use virtual thread, you simply be providing this configuration. No any code changes that are needed. Okay, so now that we have all of that in, folks, so now we can go ahead and create our basic controller that we'll be using to test. Okay, so I'll create a package first called controller. Okay, once I create this package, okay, now again create what another file called let's see, demo controller. Okay, like that. Okay, we've created a basic controller. I also have a snippet for that, which is simply going to explain as well. Okay, so I'm just going to copy all of this in and paste it. Okay, so here I'm just going to fix out this error that we are having here. Okay, so folks, basically this is how our controller would look like. I'm just going to take off. So these comments are there to explain the code. So of course, looking at these two endpoints, which is one for platform thread and the second one for virtual thread. So for example, to test with platform thread, we will have to disable virtual thread and virtual thread configuration to ensure that when we are testing from platform thread, we are able to use the OS mapped instead of using the virtual thread. Okay, so same goes for when we are testing the virtual thread. We'll have to then enable virtual thread to ensure that our requests can get mapped directly to our JVM, which uses virtual thread. Okay, so now, for example, if I were to start to test with platform thread, I'll start to test with platform thread. So the code goes in, the request will come from platform thread, which is this endpoint, and then it does the thread.sleep, which is it sleeps to simulate blocking by 10,000 by 1,000 milliseconds, and it then return our current thread pool. Okay, same goes for the virtual thread. Again, use thread.sleep to simulate blocking, but of course this one, it blocks it efficiently since it uses virtual thread. Same goes if you were to process about 10,000 plus concurrent requests. Okay, so now when we have that, okay, let's first test with platform thread. I'll disable this code now to ensure that we can test with platform thread and look at the difference. Okay, so now if I were to run this now, since now it should be using the platform thread. Okay, so if I run this application now, okay, let's give it some time while it's building. Okay, give it some time. Okay, so now it is started out. Okay, folks, and exposing one endpoint via Twitter. So now let's go ahead with our Postman tools, test our platform thread. Okay, so as you can see, our return type, how it goes by return handled by platform, and then it calls the thread.concurrent, the current thread, meaning in this case it should call what the OS thread, which is mapped directly by the operating system, not to call virtual thread. Okay, so we will be looking at that. So let's go to our Postman to execute this endpoint. So of course, this is how it goes by localhost port 8080 platform thread. Okay, so let's send out this request. Okay, as you can see, folks, status code is 200. So this is how it would look like. So again, this is my return statement handled by platform thread, and you can even see it's thread, meaning this and main. So this essentially means that this request was mapped to my operating system using platform thread, which is the main thread pool. Okay, this is the difference how it would look like when it is using platform thread. As you can see, it goes by thread, and it also tells you that the request is directly mapped by on port 88 using the exec on the main thread pool, which is on the OS based level. Okay, so again, as I said, as I already explained, why you would need to switch from using platform thread instead of why you would need to switch from platform thread to virtual thread. Of course, as you can tell that this request was directly mapped from the OS. Imagine if you'd have so many requests like this that already get mapped to your operating system. Definitely that would use, or that will create a memory leak, and it would use too much memory at runtime. Okay, so now let's go ahead now, folks, and test now with virtual thread. Okay, so again, I'll stop my application and go back to my application configuration, to my properties, and enable now virtual thread. Okay, so now let's enable virtual thread. So to enable those, we simply just comment our code, our code config. So now that we are good to go, I will restart it again. Then we can test with virtual thread. Okay, just starting out. Okay, give it some time. Okay, folks, seems to have started successfully as well. Okay, so now it is started successfully. So now let's go ahead again and test using now virtual thread. Okay, so now if I send out this request again, which goes to our local host on port 8080 under this endpoint virtual thread, if I send this request now, let's look at the difference it would take. So as you can see now, the return, it goes by handled by virtual thread, and again it calls the current thread type, which is the virtual thread exactly, as you can see. So same goes if you were to go back to our code and look at the current thread that is calling. As you can see, we didn't specify any current thread, but it knows automatically that now it's using what? A virtual thread. As you can see, handled by virtual thread plus thread.current thread, which is now what it's printing out here at my postman. As you can see, what it's printing out virtual thread, meaning now virtual thread are all actively in use. Hence now you can get this. And as you can see, it even gives you the worker pool that it's using, and even using what the Tomcat handler, and with those worker pools, such as the two worker pools for, of course, handling concurrent request. So folks, this is how you would have to use your virtual thread in managing or in high concurrent applications, and to ensure that you can be able to scale your application and handle many requests per second. Okay, so folks, I think I will have to end here for this demo today. Let me know if you have any questions and how you would have to adapt the virtual threads in your applications. Or for example, before even ending here, I would like to show you one last thing, perhaps how you would have to change, or if you wanted to adapt the same virtual thread in your existing application. So as I already explained that, for example, if I were to go to my other applications or my old repos, this is how I would have to upgrade or update my modules. For example, if I will try, let's say I'm opening this one, or maybe just this one, a window. So let's say, folks, we wanted to update our existing API, so to use virtual thread instead of platform thread. So I'm just going to show you how we would have to do the same process to ensure your APIs are using virtual thread instead of platform thread. Okay, so again, this is one of my existing APIs. So that also I would love to adopt virtual thread instead of a platform going forward. Okay, so again, as I said, one thing we need to do first, they are only available in Java 21. So it means now using any version less than 21, you won't be able to do that. You won't be able to achieve virtual thread. So again, in my case, I will have to start by upgrading my Java version to Java 21 and ensure it's using 21 as the JDK. So first step would be to update here to ensure it's using 21, of course. So again, from updating here, another thing that you would have to need to do again is to go to your application configuration. In my case, let's look at application properties. Yes, come back here and then immediately now enable what, as we have discussed, what configuration you want to come here. So that's all, folks, and your APIs would be updated successfully and using virtual thread instead of platform thread. Okay, so folks, I think I will end here. And here I've already showed you how you would have to upgrade to existing APIs or start new APIs using platform threads, using virtual threads instead of platform threads. Okay, folks, if you have any questions or like this video, please subscribe to my channel, and if you have questions, comment on the comment section below. I will be answering those. And also, if you need any of these repos that I like to use for demos, please let me know. I will give you the GitHub links for those repos. Thank you so much for attending. I'll see you in the next demo. Cheers. Peace out.